professional integrity, competence, and internalization of professional values. Here we will study about the personal honesty and professional integrity. Honesty influences every aspect of our lives, our relationships, finances, politics, recreation, academics, and careers. Updating professional knowledge is another important aspect of professional life. Here we will also study about the concepts of lifelong learning, critical thinking, ethical decision making, and self-control. Lifelong learning, continuous building of skills, abilities, and knowledge base throughout life. Critical thinking, reasonable reflective thinking focused on deciding what to believe or do. Self-control, the capability to control one's emotions, behavior, and desires. Honesty is important in personal as well as professional life. Personal honesty begins with a sound ethical design, including beliefs or rules, values, principles, and ideals. Next, personal honesty and professional integrity are not isolated, they are dependent upon each other. Due to technological changes, professional knowledge is becoming obsolete at a very fast pace. Due to this fact, organizations need to instruct and retrain their employees on a regular basis. Experiences in a person's life help him in lifelong learning. These experiences may include formal training, informal experiences, counseling, apprenticeship, etc. Perspectives of lifelong learning are formal, informal, intentional, and unexpected. Perspectives of lifelong learning are formal, informal, intentional, and unexpected. Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of enthusiastically and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information gathered from or generated by examination, knowledge, indication, interpretation, or enhancement as a guide to belief and action. A lot of people feel that being critical means finding faults. However, this is not true. An organization's code of ethics can serve several purposes. First, it creates employee awareness that ethical concerns are to be an integral part of decision making. Second, it demonstrates the commitment and direction in stating its standards and incorporating these standards into daily operations. Finally, a credo can bring unity of purpose among all employees of the organization. In the present era, self-understanding plays an important role in our ability to take decisions at a personal and professional level. As soon as one self starts accepting the existence of another self, it paves the way for establishing a value system between all living beings. The term self-control can be defined as the capability to control one's emotions, behavior, and desires. In self-control model, the first stage is the identification of conflict and second stage is conflict resolution. One of the ways to solve the conflict between personal honesty and professional integrity is to live ideally. Number 2, technological changes is the reason behind professional knowledge becoming obsolete at fast pace. Number 3, 4 pillars of lifelong learning are learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be. Next, critical thinking is described as reasonable reflective thinking focused on deciding what to believe or do. Code of ethics are extremely important in an organization. First, it creates employee awareness that ethical concerns are to be an integral part of decision making. Second, it demonstrates the commitment and direction in stating its standards and incorporating these standards into daily operations. Finally, a credo can bring unity of purpose among all employees of the organization. Number 3. The term self-control can be defined as the capability to control one's emotions, behavior, and desires. Honesty. Honesty is important in personal as well as professional life. You might have observed how a dishonest act, like lying or hiding something important from your loved ones or your senior colleagues, resulted in a problem. Sometimes these problems in relationships change the dynamics of the relationships completely. Trust is an important aspect of every relationship. It might take years to build trust but a few seconds to wipe it off completely. Thus, it is important for us to maintain trust in personal and professional life by being honest in our thoughts and in our actions. Moreover, living an honest life keeps a person free from anxiety and stress. When a person is clear in his conscience, he need not worry about anything since he has nothing to hide or lie about. This makes a person trustworthy and amiable. Establishing one's personal honesty is a big task. Relating personal and professional honesty presents a big challenge. Let us try to understand personal and professional honesty in detail. First, personal honesty. Let us start an activity to understand the term personal honesty. Ask two or more people to define honesty. You are likely to get a variety of answers. Some would say it is integrity, others might say it is keeping promises, and still others might believe that following a clear set of values is honesty. While all these are important aspects of honesty, none of these define the term. Personal honesty begins with a sound ethical design, including beliefs or rules, values, principles, and ideals. These internal ethical components are not the same as honesty, but make the foundation of honesty. My life is an invisible whole, and all my activities run into one another. My life is my message. Mahatma Gandhi. Ethics alone are not sufficient to realize personal honesty. The life that is lived with integrity is a life in which a person strives towards the good and the true. Honesty, in that sense, may be conceived as a journey and not a destination. Next, professional integrity. Here the term professional refers to everyone who earns a living, rather than a narrower context of professions, such as doctors, lawyers, teachers, etc. Professionals are respected by everyone in society due to their services. Teachers teach children and are referred to as nation builders. Doctors give their services for the healthy life of people of the society. Military professionals provide their services for the safety and security of the nation. Similarly, all professionals contribute to society by their services. Society trusts these professionals, and this trust puts each professional into role-specific obligations and responsibilities. When any professional violates people's trust, it is considered a serious breach of professional integrity. Personal honesty and professional integrity are not isolated. They are dependent upon each other. The word honesty and integrity suggest wholeness, wholeness of virtue, wholeness as a person, wholeness in the sense of being an integral part of a community, corporation, society, humanity, and the cosmos. Individuals believe that they have their own set of ethics, whereas an organization establishes its own set of values, code of conduct, and policies in collaboration with stakeholders. Corporations themselves are individuals in the eyes of the law. Thus, they rely upon human beings to carry out their mission, survive, and succeed. All organizations develop rituals, traditions, procedures, formal and informal systems which form the corporate culture. Corporate honesty is a manifestation of corporate culture, which ultimately stems from the actions of its individuals. It is likely that one's personal integrity would come in conflict with corporate culture and professional integrity. To resolve the issue of this conflict, the first step is to seek personal honesty or integrity without considering professional integrity or honesty. We must do the difficult task of thinking about our own ethics, translating them into actions of virtue, and achieving the wholeness of character. After pondering over personal honesty, it is then that a person can think about his professional integrity. Some people live in two different systems, our personal honesty and the system of honesty defined by our colleagues, company, or profession. However, when there are differences in these systems, the concept of wholeness is destroyed and it makes true integrity impossible. In addition, living in two different worlds leads to fragmentation. One of the ways of relating personal honesty and professional integrity is to live ideally. Honesty does not mean we may never compromise. Whenever personal and professional integrity come into conflict, an opportunity exists for both individuals and organizations to reevaluate what we do, why we do it, and how it influences others and us. Honesty is dynamic and growing, not monolithic and static. It is important to establish one's personal integrity in a well thought out manner before attempting to relate it to professional or corporate integrity. Honesty influences every aspect of our lives, our relationships, finances, politics, recreation, academics, and careers. We will never achieve honesty in any of these areas unless we start with personal honesty. Taking the considerable effort to establish personal honesty and having the courage to relate personal and professional honesty is the only way to achieve whole integrity. Professional knowledge. Due to technological changes, professional knowledge is becoming obsolete at a very fast pace. At a very fast pace. Due to this fact, organizations need to instruct and retrain their employees on a regular basis. Job education has become a necessity for everyone, be it a senior person or a freshers. Thus, some employees of the organization have to be involved in continuous instruction and retraining of other employees. Many professionals seek success in their fields, but the definition of success differs from one person to another. Numerous factors are involved in the success of an individual. A person's desire to succeed and having a positive attitude towards life builds a strong base in an individual's life and sequentially in their career. Enthusiastic, enthusiastic and positive minded people work well with subordinate colleagues and managers. Motivation and determination make professionals succeed in difficult projects and situations. For this, professional knowledge is extremely important as it helps an individual to develop ability to solve problems. Professional knowledge proves useful in many ways. First, it keeps professionals up to date with new developments in their areas of specialization and enhances their knowledge base. Next, it provides important professional information in an efficient manner and makes a person capable of applying that knowledge in their work. Next, it helps in planning, organizing, designing, and implementing knowledge to find solutions. Next, it helps a person share his expertise with professionals in the same field. Next, it makes a person aware of latest methodologies and processes in their area of specialization. It helps a person become a contributing member in the professional network. It helps a person in handling value conflicts and ethical dilemmas efficiently. It makes a professional capable of dealing with difficult projects and difficult situations at work. It helps the organization in evaluating and analyzing its current position. Skills are crucial for the professional development of a person as it helps him develop aptitudes that aid a person tackle daily work routine. It helps a professional develop different strategies and techniques in order to handle different situations. Thus, developing abilities and professional knowledge is crucial in every professional field and should be adopted by organizations, managers, and personnel in order to provide quality service and or product to clients. Lifelong learning. Continuous building of skills, abilities, and knowledge base throughout life is known as lifelong learning. Experiences in a person's life help him in lifelong learning. These experiences may include formal training, informal experiences, counseling, apprenticeship, etc. It is the lifelong, intentional, and self motivated quest of knowledge for personal or professional growth and to improve quality of life. It also enhances a person's competitiveness and employability. Enhancing self awareness is a prerequisite for building lifelong learning abilities. Learning takes place at all times and in all places. It starts with a birth, a child, and goes on till the end of his life. It takes place in families, societies, educational institutions, religious institutions, workplaces, etc. Next, stage of lifelong learning. A person goes through a number of stages in lifelong learning. Stages of lifelong learning. Age 0 to age 5 years. Learning next is learning in the age 6 to 24 group. Next is learning in the 25 to 60 age group. Next, learning in the 60 plus age group. Age 0 to 5 years. During this phase, a child learns a lot from his parents, peers, and environment. Learning at this stage prepares the foundation for future learning habits. Thus, it is important that a child is directed to learn good habits during this stage. Many psychologists believe that informal learning at this stage have a great influence in a person's life. Habits and behavior towards peers and adults is acquired during this stage. Next is age 6 to 24 years. During this stage, formal learning of a person takes place in educational institutes like school and college. He acquires a lot from his family, society, religious institutions, and mass media. Physical, mental, intellectual, emotional, and social development of a person is the objective of learning in this period. Next is learning in the 25 to 60 age group. This is the age where a person usually earns. Thus, this is also known as working period. Thus, during this phase, a person learns a lot from instructional medium at workplace, touring, information technologies, mass media, environment, and nature. This stage builds and enhances self-awareness and integrity in a person. Next, learning in the 60 plus age group. During this stage, people may seek knowledge of different things just for the sake of it. People who keep learning even during this stage experience a sense of achievement and are able to maintain their self-esteem. Some people use the knowledge acquired until this age for the welfare of society and wish to be contributing members of communities. Four pillars of lifelong learning are: number 1, learning to know; number 2, learning to do; number 3, learning to live together; number 4, learning to be. Lifelong learning usually takes place in four ways. Some people learn in order to enhance their knowledge base and then use this knowledge to improve their quality of life. This kind of learning is known as learning to know. Some people learn some skills so that they can contribute to the society through their skills. This is called learning to do. Everybody wishes to learn to live together so that they can build good relationship in their personal and professional life. Learning to be is the holistic and integrated approach which helps a person in continuous self-development. Perspectives of lifelong learning are formal, informal, intentional, and unexpected. Formal includes classes, e-learning, and meeting. Informal perspective includes community, team playing, etc. Intentional perspective includes reading, coaching, and monitoring, etc. Unexpected perspective includes self-study, exploring, and internet surfing. Next topic: characteristics of lifelong learning. Some of the general characteristics of lifelong learning are listed as follows. First, as a professional, ability and drive to learn persistently has a competitive advantage. Next, learning is not a one-time event but a lifelong process. It has to be uninterrupted and self-directed. Next, if you keep doing this, if you keep doing things the way you have always done, you will only know what you have always known. Next, the more risk you take, the more you learn. All considerable learning happens when we are ready to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. Next, when you take risk, be ready to fail and learn from those failures. Do not waste your failures. Next, learning requires a self learning requires a self-effacing self-reflection and assessment of your successes, failures, motives, assumptions, and actions. Next topic: types of lifelong learning. Some of the types of lifelong learning are as follows. Informal learning. Lifelong learning includes formal as well as informal types of learning. Formal learning takes place in educational institutions through a well-structured educational system. When a child goes to school, college, or other educational institutes, he learns many things in a formal manner. Informal learning takes place when a person acquires values, attitudes, skills, habits, behavior from his environment, family, peers, and society. While growing up, a person goes through a number of pleasant and unpleasant experiences which add to the learning of the person. Next, self-motivated learning. Hunger for knowledge is a major motivation which encourages a person to learn. Self-motivated learning takes place when a person feels the need to learn and take responsibility for his learning. Learning which takes place in this manner is due to the willingness of person to learn. Though it results in economic benefit, but this is not the only factor which encourages the person to indulge himself in learning and training. Not everyone who is motivated to learn can earn. A person comes across many barriers like economic, personal, and social. For instance, a lady wishes to enhance her dancing abilities, but her family and society pressures may stop her from learning these skills. There are a number of reasons why people indulge in self-motivated learning. Some of these reasons are as follows. There are a number of reasons why people indulge in self-motivated learning. Some of these reasons are as follows. First, to enhance their professional or job-related skills. Next, to start a business. Next, to expand their knowledge base in their area of interest. Next, to meet new people and interact with them. Next, to develop self-esteem and self-confidence. Next, to become a part of social networking. Thus, economic gain may not be the only factor behind self-motivated learning. In many cases, people may not have a specific motive or goal in mind when they participate in this kind of learning. Next, self-funded learning. Self-funded learning may not only mean that a person invests or spends money in order to learn. It means that a person is willing to and is prepared to invest his time, money, and effort to learn and increase his knowledge base. Self-funded learning is linked to self-motivated learning because a person would be ready to fund his learning only when he is motivated to learn. Next, universal participation. The concept of universal participation involves learning not only for the self but for the social, economic, and personal purposes. Universal participation involves learning to know, learning to be, learning to do, and learning to live together. According to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD), universal participation is important in order to meet the demands of the 21st century.
Critical thinking. Critical thinking has been described as reasonable reflective thinking, focused on deciding what to believe or do. Some people also describe critical thinking as the intellectually disciplined process of enthusiastically and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information gathered from or generated by examination, knowledge, indication, interpretation, or announcement as a guide to belief and action. It is an important component of most of the professional. Executive must be able to think critically. That is, they must have clarity of thought. Critical thinking is the foundation of executive intelligence. Little correlation is found between those who have a formal business education and those who possess critical thinking. Some executives have a knack for critical thinking, while some do not possess this ability. Executives may be sophisticated and technologically brilliant, but if they do not possess clarity of thought, their business decisions would not be sound. Critical thinking involves observation, analysis, scrutiny, inference, assessment, and rationalization. During the process of critical thinking, due consideration is given to evidences, context, criteria for judgment, and the techniques that are used to arrive at a conclusion. A critical thinker should have the ability to understand the importance of prioritizing. Before a particular problem is solved, it is important to know the priority of that problem in relation to other problems at hand. Once the priority of the problem has been decided, then the situation in hand needs to be scrutinized. The relevant information is then collected and organized. He then has to find the solution of the problem with the help of analysis. After this, he tests the applicability of the solution. Once he is sure that the solution is correct, he presents it as the solution of the problem to the organizational head. A critical thinker should be transparent, unbiased, sincere, and meticulous. A lot of people feel that being critical means finding faults. However, this is not true. Critical thinking means that a person is able to scrutinize the situation and appreciate what is worth appreciating and criticize what needs to be criticized. Next topic, need of critical thinking. First, it is a general domain. Critical thinking is applicable in all fields like education, finance, management, and law. It is not restricted to any particular area. Thus, critical thinking helps a person in being successful in whatever field he is in. Next, it is required due to rapid changes in information and technology. Due to quick technology changes, all professionals are expected to adapt themselves to changes at a fast pace. Critically thinking helps a person to scrutinize information and improves his intellectual abilities. Thus, he can easily adapt himself to numerous changes around him. Next, it enhances our presentation skills. When a person is able to think clearly, he can express his ideas, observations, and opinions in a better manner. Next, it promotes creativity. A critical thinker can assess a situation in such a manner that he can suggest some creative ideas to solve that problem. Thus, critical thinking and creativity are related to each other. Next, it helps in self-reflection. A critical thinker can evaluate his own thoughts and actions and improve and develop himself. Thus, we should make attempts to develop our skills of critical thinking to be successful in our personal as well as professional life. Ethical decision making. An organization's ethics can serve several purposes. First, it creates employee awareness that ethical concerns are to be an integral part of decision making. Second, it demonstrates the commitment and direction in setting its standards and incorporating these standards into daily operations. Finally, a credo can bring unity of purpose among all employees of the organization. However, the code of ethics has to be beyond mere words and must be strictly followed and monitored. It is not always easy to translate general statements regarding the code of conduct into specific and clear-cut directive of operation. For example, most life insurance companies forbid their salesmen to share their commission with their clients as this practice is considered unethical. But the competition as it is makes it difficult for salespeople to make a sale without giving any financial incentive to clients. Accordingly, some organizations are finding it exceedingly harder to enforce the application of such ethical policies. The difficulty in specifically defining morality or ethical behavior makes an acceptable code of ethics highly cumbersome for the organizations. This creates a dilemma for organizations because clear-cut policies regarding ethical conduct are difficult to establish, especially for those organizations that operate in a number of countries because the code of conduct may vary from country to country. Organizations usually establish a code of ethics that is consistent with the viewpoints of the prevailing society. However, the same code may not be valid in a different society and may change within the same society over a period of time. For example, in the 1900s, that is in the 20th century, society considered it unethical for a person to purchase merchandise on credit, while these days credit purchases are an integral part of living. This makes defining and specifying the code of ethics very difficult. Accordingly, if the ethical guidelines are not specific, they could lead to different interpretations, thus defeating the very purpose for which these guidelines are designed. On the other hand, If these guidelines are highly specific, these will not apply equally to all because of different norms among different cultures and subcultures. Decisions taken at various levels have significant contribution towards the formation of the entire system in an organization and contribute in the ethical decision making. Let us understand this in detail. Number 1. Individual level. The ethics at the individual level are usually a product of personal upbringing, schooling, religious affiliation, and organizational group dynamics. Any ethical considerations that are unclear can be cleared through religious leaders, teachers, or friends. An individual can also attend some management seminars or associations, conferences on ethical issues and values that are periodically held to gain a better insight and perspective. He must make himself fully familiar with organizational attitudes towards certain clear-cut ethical issues. Number 2. Organizational level. This is the most important level at which the management can play an important role in shaping the ethical climate of the organization. Top management should play a strong ethical role model so as to see that sound ethics permeate through all levels of organization hierarchy. The management must set goals that are objectively achievable, because setting too high goals might induce some employees to use unethical methods to achieve them. The ethical aspects of the goal setting must be recognized and the organizational priorities must be clearly defined and communicated. The ethical aspects of goals, priorities, and activities should be provided to all through a written code of ethics. It is also the management's responsibility to ensure that these ethical concepts are respected by all and are followed by them. Number 3. Societal level. At the societal level, the ethics can be shaped by law, since laws are passed by society representatives and are meant to protect the society's health and values by fear of enforcement. For instance, laws against industrial espionage are meant to discredit unfair competition and encourage honest progress. The society should also take a view of practices that may be unethical but not dealt with by legal framework. Accordingly, society must make it known to all as to what is ethically acceptable and what is not. In general, the management has a serious responsibility to ensure that an organizational climate exists that is ethically defendable, and to ensure that it meets all its social obligations with honesty and sincerity, and to ensure that the economic goals and social goals complement each other. Self-understanding. In the present era, self-understanding plays an important role in our ability to take decisions at a personal and professional level. Thus, our understanding about self influences our values, attitudes, habits, behaviors in the direction that we give to our life. When we are able to take right decisions with our understanding of ourselves and things around us, we get a sense of self-fulfillment, and it enhances our self-awareness as well. We can improve our self-understanding if we seek feedback from others and use that feedback to improve ourselves. According to many people, self-understanding makes a person effective in his personal and professional life and improves his quality of life. A person needs to observe his own thoughts and actions so that he can understand himself well. When a person observes his own thoughts and actions, he can find out what he wants to retain and what he wants to sense. However, self-understanding does not mean being self-critical all the time. It means observing yourself without being judgmental. Once a person is able to understand himself, he would be able to understand the way he reacts to different situations. This observance would gradually result in improving self without being self-critical. Acceptance of self and others. As soon as oneself starts accepting the existence of another self, it paves the way for establishing a value system between all living beings. Even self knows his own needs and desires, and as soon as he knowingly or unknowingly conforms to the law of nature in terms of letting others live. He accepts other beings as an independent self existing independently. If the primary need of oneself is to live happily as long as he can, this need must be uniformly applicable to every self. With this fundamental acceptance, oneself can easily understand the basic needs of every other self. Self-acceptance means that a person is able to accept himself as he is and love himself for what he is. When a person accepts himself, he feels happy with himself and is able to appreciate his strength. Self-acceptance is also an important part of self-development. A lot of times, people are not able to develop themselves because they fail to accept their weak areas. However, self-acceptance helps a person to accept weak areas, and this helps a person to improving himself gradually. Acceptance allows sense. The acceptance mode includes everything, even my judgments. It allows me to be okay now, even before I reach my goals. When you begin to accept yourself the way you are right now, you begin a new life with new possibilities that did not exist before because you were so caught up in the struggle against reality that was all you could do. Traveling free. Mandy once. Self-acceptance is the first step to improve yourself. People do not realize that non-acceptance is the reason behind a number of problems they are facing in their lives. When people do not accept themselves, they feel irritable, discontent, and depressed. They spend a major part of their lives in self-rejection and in making endeavors to be anyone but themselves. The irony lies in the fact that though we do not accept ourselves, yet we expect others to accept us as we are. We expect love from other people but do not understand the need of self-love. We go to the extent of doing anything just to win their approval and acceptance. When we are not able to get the approval, we resent them. Due to non-acceptance, we do not allow people to be too familiar with us, as we are afraid that they may hate us for what we are. Due to this fear, we reject others so that they cannot reject us. Thus, we are neither able to accept ourselves nor others. A lot of spiritual gurus teach that it is alright to make mistakes and know that we are not perfect. We should accept ourselves and find strength, courage, and hope within ourselves. When we accept ourselves as we are, we do not need to seek approval from other people. We can appreciate ourselves, our strengths, weaknesses, possessions, and everything that is a part of us. This helps us become better human beings. Once we are able to accept ourselves, gradually we learn to accept others as they are. It is because gradually we realize that no one is perfect, so we do not expect others to be perfect too. This results in acceptance of self and others. Self-control. The term self-control can be defined as the capability to control one's motions, behavior, and desires. It is also known as self-regulation. A self-regulated person finds ways to control and channel his emotional impulses. He is not a prisoner of his feelings. For example, a sales manager watches his team give a lousy presentation to an important client. He might have been tempted to scream at the team members, but a self-regulated team leader would choose his words carefully, acknowledging the team's poor performance without rushing to a hasty judgment. He would then step back to consider the reasons for the team's poor show. Was there a lack of effort? Did the team have enough time to prepare for the presentation? Was the team briefed about the client's requirements? After considering these questions, he would lay out the incident's consequences and offer his feelings about it. He would then present his analysis of the problem and a well-considered solution. A manager who is in control of his feelings and impulses is able to create an environment of trust and fairness because he is perceived as reasonable. In such an environment, politics is less and productivity is high. Talent people want to work in such an environment. Such a manager helps in reducing the employee turnover. Self-control has a trickle-down effect. An employee would not want to be known to be hot-headed, when his boss is known for his calm manners. Fewer bad moods at the top means fewer throughout the organization. Self-control enhances integrity, which is not only a personal virtue but also an organizational strength. Many of the bad things that happen in organizations are results of impulsive behavior. It is important to recognize self-regulated employees. A self-regulated person shows an inclination for reflection and thoughtfulness. He is comfortable with ambiguity and sense. When he is honest, he can say no to impulsive urges. Sadly, companies do not recognize and appreciate self-regulated employees. Employees who are in control of their emotions are seen as cold, and their considered responses are taken as a lack of passion. Managers with a fiery temperament are thought of as classic leaders, and their outbursts are taken as hallmarks of charisma and power. However, when these very fiery managers make it to the top, their impulsiveness works against them. Extreme display of negative emotion always works against a leader. According to a number of studies, pressures that an individual feels affects his degree of self-control. First, when there are a number of competitive people around a person, he feels motivated and is able to gain self-control so that he too can improve himself. Next, when the pressure around a person is of negative type, he becomes biased and judgmental, and this results in losing self-control. Next, when a person does not face any pressure, then it depends upon a person how he controls himself in a given situation. Self-control of a person usually improves as he grows up. As children, he do not have the ability to understand the future consequences of our actions. However, when we grow up, we can foresee the consequences. This fact makes it necessary for a person to have self-control. The term self-regulation is also used to refer to many processes which a person uses to manage drives and emotions. Therefore, self-control also embodies the concept of willpower. Self-regulation is an extremely important executive function of the brain. Success in self-control depends upon how a person deals with various temptations with the help of his personal and professional integrity, and the way he implements self-control techniques. In self-control model, the first stage is the identification of conflict. When a person is able to identify the conflict, he can assess the situation in a better manner. He can understand the cost of his temptation. If the cost of the temptation is big, he may like to control himself and not fall prey to his temptation. However, if the cost of temptation is low, it depends on a person whether he wants to control himself or not. Another factor that may sense the degree of self-control in a person is whether he is seeing that temptation as the only opportunity or one of the opportunities. In the former case, a person may fall prey to his temptation, and in the latter case, he might delay his temptation until the next opportunity arises. The second stage in self-control model is conflict resolution. In this stage, a person who is motivated to control himself controls himself. If the person does not see the cost of temptation as too big and sees the present temptation as the only opportunity, he might give in to his temptation.